Helps if I'm not muted. That helps. Oh, good morning, everyone. I am so happy to see you all here. Yay. What a fun way to start the year, by just like connecting together in this way and sinking in to this energy together. So I just want to start off by saying, whether you're live, whether you're on the replay, whenever you're watching this, if you decide to come back to this in like 6 months' time, I so appreciate you being here. I'm just so happy to have you here. Know that this is a co-creation. So you being here, you participating, you being open to this experience with me, this is a co-creation that we're creating together. We are working together to create this energy. So this forecast is very specifically for the people who are listening, right? And with that being said, you above all know your heart, your intuition, and your soul. So anything I am sharing today, if it feels right and true and resonant, trust yourself. If something I say is like, I don't think that's right, or that's not a fit for me, like, take that to heart. You get to choose your experience here. So because it is a co-creation, your intuitive guidance system, your inner guidance system, your guides, your intuition, whatever languaging you want to put around this, they're active and they're present and they're working with you as well. So we are doing this together. Does anyone have any questions about that? Yay, I'm so happy you're here. I'd love, before I just start diving right in, I'd love to just hear in the chat really quick, where are you guys tuning in from? If anyone wants to share, I want to know, you guys, this is amazing. We've got almost 50 people on the call today, and we have more people joining. Got people from Calgary, Saskatoon, Ohio, Kelowna, Saudi, Montreal, Ontario, Los Angeles, South Carolina, Buffalo, Canmore. This is so good. Atlanta, Georgia, Vermont, Chicago, Fairfield, California, Vancouver, Lake Country. This is so great. Grand Forks, Penticton. I love it. We have like lots of super close and local people, and some people from all around the world. Okay, let's get into this. My name is Meaghan Alton. I am a numerologist. I like to kind of joke that I'm an economist turned numerologist. I started my background in business. I have a business degree and I have a master's degree in economics. And before I became a numerologist, I used to look at massive spreadsheets of data and look for patterns using like stats and econometrics and all those fun things. And I used to forecast revenue for the provincial government. So I always find it kind of humorous and ironic that now I use language of numbers to interpret energy. And that's what numerology is. It's using the language of numbers to interpret energy. So we can look at number patterns and number sequences, and we can start to identify what potentials are available to us. The numbers themselves are markers, right? And each number is going to mean different things. And what I'm sharing with you today is a universal energy forecast, which means it's relevant to anyone that happens to be living on this planet. You also all have personal energy patterns, which will be interacting with the universal. Okay, so if you are so inclined to get a personal numerology forecast, you can do that, and both will be relevant. And in fact, you'll want to kind of layer them. And if you're like me and you love lots of different intuitive, modalities or divination practices, like I got an astrology year ahead reading, I do my own tarot reading, and I like to kind of layer them. So you get to take this that I'm sharing for you, and this can be your main source, or you can layer it with other sources. And as it's universal, I want you to remember there's two ways to look at it. Both you as in terms of like, this is happening around me, and I get to choose how to interact with it. It's like the climate you're swimming in. But also be aware that because I know my people, you guys are some of the most conscious people out there. You're already very tapped in and tuned into the energy. So you're already very aware, and this is just going to dial that awareness up even more. But most of us deal with people on a daily basis who are less aware of what's happening. And so this can give you insight into why some of the people in your world are going to be dealing with stuff that they're dealing with. If you happen to be a business owner, entrepreneur, or a content creator, one of my favorite things to do with this energy is to understand what your clients are going through so that you can provide them supportive and loving tips, tools, content, and strategies to help them navigate. Okay, so there's kind of several frames that you can look at this information with. And as we're going through, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. I love for this to be as interactive as possible. I will go through, the forecast as we go, and maybe I'll kind of keep an eye on the chat, and if there's questions that are relevant to exactly what I'm talking about in a minute, I'll address them then. But if there's sort of different questions or bigger questions, maybe we'll kind of bulk those at the end. But either way, because there's a lot of us on the call, if I miss your question, just retype it in a couple more minutes, and then hopefully I'll catch it the next time it comes around. Okie dokie. Yay, let's do it. Okay, so good. So we are dealing with a 7 energy year, and being as I'm a 7, I could not be more excited about this. This is going to be amazing. As I mentioned, you all are going to have your own personal patterns. Some of you might know your ruling number, and if you do, great. If you don't know your ruling number, I have a free download in my Instagram that you can use to calculate it, or you could reach out to one of the numerologists and get a personal reading. You can reach out to me and get a personal reading, whatever you want. But I'm a ruling number 7, and 7 energy is the entire 2023 year. Okay, so how we calculate that is just like the 2 plus the 2 plus the 3 equals 7. Simple calculation. 7 is incredibly powerful for so many of us because it indicates change. It indicates changing things up, switching things up. A lot of what we've been dealing with for the past little while, coming out of 2022, was a 6 energy year. A lot of what we've been dealing with is karmic adjustment. And so there's been a lot of relationship shifting. There's been a lot of dynamics being different in relationship. There's been a lot of people's eyes being open to things being maybe different than they thought, particularly near the end of 2022. In my, I think it was December forecast, I talked about illusions crumbling. And it was like, we'd all kind of had these ideas of things being a certain way, and then started seeing things differently, whether it was, personally in relationship, or maybe even on a broader, like, cultural scale, right? And while crumbling illusions is kind of scary, like, it's unsettling, to look at things differently or to see things differently at times, it's also the birth of a huge opportunity. And this is the transition that we're in right now, is it's like, okay, if I've thrown out some stuff or reset some stuff, or if I'm seeing things in a different light, this is a huge opportunity, because now I get to think about, how do I choose to relate with this? How does this fit with my value system, with what's important to me, with what I believe to be true? Now, some of you have heard me talk about this before. I don't look at truth as an absolute. I look at truth as lenses of perception and perspective based on the filters that we're seeing it through, right? So as a ruling number 7, I have a certain filter. If you happen to be a ruling 3 or a ruling 4 or whatever number you happen to be, your filter is going to be a little bit different. And that is going to change the tinge of what you see. And that's not wrong. That's totally reasonable and appropriate and good, right? So it's okay to think, well, people around me, or people I know, or people I relate with, have this frame. And while that's interesting for me, I kind of see things from a different angle. And this is not comfortable, right? It's not comfortable to see things differently. In a 7 energy year, we are all going to be seeing things differently. And that's why, if you've been in my world for a couple of weeks, I think back in December, I sent an email out talking about how I believe this is going to be the year for people who are energy workers, who are seers, who are intuitives, who are sensitive, because you have the ability to tap into senses that other people may not have, to get a richer understanding of what's actually happening, right? It's like this idea of like, what you see is what you get. Not so much. not so much, right? There is deeper layers that are really going to be coming out right now. And for people who are the kind of people who need, like, I need proof, I need evidence, I need it in black and white on the page in front of me, this is going to be unsettling. Okay, this year is an exercise in self-trust of like, I don't know what's happening out there. I don't know what's going on in other people's worlds, minds, and frames, but this is what I feel in my heart. This is what I feel in my gut. Whether people think I happen to be right or wrong, how do I decide to trust, honor, respect, and take care of my own heart, my own feelings? Okay. So, Isabel, I love that you're saying this. Thank you for explaining this. I've been asking myself for a few years now why I see things so differently from many of my friends. And this is true. Okay. This is something I really want you to take to heart, is if you have been seeing things or feeling things differently, it's likely because you're having access to another sense that you're using. Right? So like I said, if you're sensitive, if you have any way of interpreting and working with energy, whether you're conscious to it or not, whether this is something you're like, yep, I've been working with my intuitive languages for years, right? And developing them. This is the year they're going to get stronger and you are going to dial them up big time. And if you're kind of like, I don't really know what you're talking about, but I'm intrigued and I'm leaning into this, let me tell you, this is the year that you will dial that up, that you will strengthen that. Having an intuitive language, having intuitive gifts, having clairs, this is not like you're either born with it or you're not. This is something that is a muscle that we all have the ability to choose to strengthen, grow, and develop if we are feeling the desire to. And that's the only requirement. So if you're leaning into it, you're intrigued by it. I always say, follow your intrigue, right? If you're following your intrigue and you're following your curiosity, that is a practice of learning to trust yourself and trust your process, even if other people are like I remember when I first started playing with tarot, some people were like, what is this? What are you doing? What is this crazy thing? And now here we are, like maybe 10 plus years later, and it's not weird at all. I don't know that anybody thinks tarot is weird anymore, but 10 years ago, you would even be a little nervous to like whip them out in a coffee shop. Whereas now I whip them out in a coffee shop and somebody next to me will be like, ooh, can I have a reading? Like, that's normal, right? Dialing it up. Thank you. Yeah. Calling them filters, calling them factors. Yes. Working your muscles. So if you're looking to develop your intuition, there is lots of different practices and tools that you can use. And if this is something, like I said, that's calling to you this year, I encourage you to follow your intrigue. What are the modalities that are curious to me? What are the teachers or leaders or books or resources that I'm like resonating with, that I find interesting, that I want to lean into, and just follow that, right? So whether you're drawn to, tarot, numerology, any type of energy work, like just get curious about it and don't need to know where it's going to take you. So we've kind of been going overall, throughout the kind of the entire 7 energy vibe so far. I'm going to talk about that for just a little bit more. And then I want to go into some specifics around month energy. Does that sound good to you guys? Okay. So because 7 is about navigating in the unknown, the most important thing to do is to learn, how do I develop comfort in walking in the dark? How do I develop comfort in finding my footing when I maybe can't see a trail or I can't see a map? These are the skills that are going to be most helpful for you this year. And honestly, this whole idea of like navigating in the dark is like, how do I find my center? The more grounded and centered and true you feel to your own heart, the easier it is to make decisions, to come up against challenges, to constantly be like, what is orienting me? And that's the question I really want you to keep sort of top of mind right now, is what is orienting me? Okay. Like this is an incredibly important question to be asking yourself as you're navigating in the unknown is what's orienting me? What is rooting my decisions? Am I being oriented by past circumstances? Am I being oriented by the expectations or the advice of other people? Am I being oriented by a fear or an insecurity? And I don't want us to say, it's wrong, like it's okay, but it's good to be aware, right? It's really, really good to be aware. And if you start finding like, oh, wow, I seem to be orienting a lot of my decisions based on other people's advice. Like it's okay to get other people's advice, but filter it through your own guidance system. That is where the gold lies, right? The other thing that I would say about situations like that is to be discerning and mindful of like, okay, if I'm taking in, things even like this, like someone's forecast, like I'm sharing right now, like ask yourself, do I resonate with this person? Do I align with their values to some degree? Does the life that they're living make sense to me? Like, is that something like, don't take advice from people whose life you wouldn't want. Let's just put it that way. Like, don't take their advice if you wouldn't want to be in their shoes. And this was something I needed to learn a few years ago because I'm an entrepreneur, obviously. And most of my family members have had longstanding careers, especially in teaching for many, many years. And I obviously like respect their opinions so much, but their relationship with understanding like how to take and make investment decisions, or their understanding about how to navigate risk, or even sales and marketing, like it's going to be different. So it's like, okay, well, that's okay. I can still consider what they have to say, but frame it with like, are they where I want to be? Right? Are they where I want to be? Don't take financial advice from someone who's struggling with money, right? Everyone has their own way of interpreting, and their reaction is going to be different. This is so true. And this is why I always talk about there's no such thing as a truth. There's just frames and perspectives. I was reading through client feedback from the other day, and this made me giggle so hard. And I love this, you guys. So please like keep telling me. I'm not saying it in a negative way, but it made me laugh because I literally read one form and the person was like, sometimes I struggle that you don't always start on time. And I learned that this is an area I need to let go in. And I'm like, okay, all right, noted. And then like a few forms later, I get this other person saying to me, I love how you always start on time. Is that is not like black and white obviousness of like, each of those people has a different frame as to what on time means, clearly, right? Clearly. And for one of them, I fit it. And for the other person, I don't. And all I can do for me is to go into myself and be like, what are my values? What are my priorities? What's important to me? Where does my heart sit? And do the best I can to show up in alignment with that. And the clients who are meant to kind of fit with that will fit with that. And the clients who aren't won't. And it's totally fine. Right. So I think it's so funny. It cracks me right up. But I love these little pieces of evidence that the universe will give us as to the nebulousness of truth and how important perspective and framing is. And, I'll even go back to my my days of being in academics, right? People used to talk about like, because I was in statistics and econometrics, and I would do like scientific studies that would, go into journals and stuff, right? And so we used to talk about something called observer bias, okay, which is like a problem in the academic world. Observer bias means that the outcome of something is dependent on the views of the people who are doing the study. So if I'm doing a study, I'm a scientist, an economist, and I'm doing a study, and I believe something to be true, even if I don't tell you, even if I don't tell the other people involved in the study, that belief informs the outcome of the study, which is why you can get multiple studies performed the exact same way with different outcomes because of observer bias. And so science tries to manage this by using things like double blind and right? And this is like a problem, right? And that's fine. Like maybe from their frame it is. From my frame, this is fucking brilliant. Like this is brilliant. You mean to tell me that the outcome of my experience is determined by how I feel and believe about it, right? And we can prove this with science. This isn't like some made up like law of attraction thing. Like this is something that scientists deal with every single day. Data can be very easily manipulated, as I learned as an economist economists can be kind of famous for, manipulating data. And I'll be the first to say I studied it for many years. So I know the tricks and how that happens. And having certain biases or beliefs, right? Even if you believe they're founded in truth, is going to inform your outcome. And I think the reason I'm kind of like harping on this right now is because if you imagine that you are walking in the dark right now, okay, you don't have access to your eyes to see where you're going. This is a metaphor, okay? You're walking in the dark. You don't have access with your eyes to see where you're going. If you're walking every step being like, holy crap, I'm going to die, or I'm going to trip, or I'm going to make a mistake, or I'm going to fall, I'm going to bump into something, you're walking like clenched, like freaking out, like taking baby steps. And now you have this idea that's going to inform your actions of like, I'm going to fall, I'm going to struggle, I'm going to trip, whatever, right? Every time I tell a story like this, I always think of like, if you're camping at night and you have to get out of the tent to go to the bathroom and it's pitch black out, and you're like trying not to trip on the way to the outhouse. This is the analogy that goes through my head with this story, right? Or if you're like, you take a deep breath and you're like, okay, let me orient to what I can sense. I can hear, a creak in the distance, or I can hear the wind in the trees. Like, what can I sense and what do I know? And what if I decided to actually just trust that and walk through with the sense of like, I'm going to be okay. I can move through this. I will let myself adjust and reorient. So to me, it's so important to be constantly coming back to this question of like, what is orienting me right now? Am I being oriented by the fear of tripping? Or am I being oriented by finding my center and tuning into what I do feel and know to be accurate in this moment? Right. And it's just that simple question. Like, if that's all you take away from this forecast, I will be a happy girl. Leaning into discernment. Absolutely. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the year overall. There's going to be a few things I'll continue to say about the 7 energy year as we go into the month by month, but does anyone have any questions about that so far, or wonderings about like, just in general? I would say in 7 energy, it's a great time to try new things, to seek out new teachers, new mentors, to try a different book, try a different restaurant, go on a trip. It's a great time to stretch your boundaries and stretch your comfort zone. It's also a time when things can tend to speed up. Okay. Obviously, if you're locked in, if you're the person who's like clenching because you're afraid of tripping, you're actually going to get stucker than stuck, because the shadow of 7 is like when 7 is stuck, it's really, really stuck. You are better off to make a decision and make it wrong than to avoid making a decision at all. Okay. So that whole idea of failing forward, like you guys have heard that expression where it's like, don't hesitate and stop and wait. Make a decision and then make a new one, and then make a new one, and then make a new one, and fuck up 10 times if you need to. It's totally fine. Like none of us are like, these aren't life and death. I mean, assuming none of you guys are dealing with life and death decisions where it's like, if I wake up today and I do it a little differently, like people aren't dying, right? Like it's okay. So like make a decision. Failing into learning. Yeah. So like, let yourself like, even asking the question of like, okay, so say I decide to do this just because I want to, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I just want to do this. What's the worst that can happen? Someone might not be happy with me. Someone might be mad at me, might hurt someone's feelings. Can I live with that? Absolutely. Do it anyways. Right? Like, just make the decision and do it. And oftentimes these stories that we tell ourselves are not even real, right? They're not even real. Okay. So yeah, the good things to do would be making changes, being in flow, orienting to your inner guidance system above all else. The other analogy I love to share is that imagine you were an explorer and you got in a boat and you're like, this is like many, many years ago. And you're like, I want to go to the edges of the earth. And everyone around you is like, no, like, don't, the earth is flat. You're going to, fall off the edge. Like, you're going to die. Like, don't get in the boat. But you're like, I just need to know. I just need to know. And that person making the decision at that time in their lives, they might have been right and they might have been wrong, right? Like from their mind, I might fall off the edge of the earth and die, or I might not. But what made them do it was that they had to know. There was something in them that was like, I can't just not find out, right? I can't just not find out. So let yourself be that kind of like adventurous spirit in trying things differently, because you just don't know. You absolutely don't know. And this is true now more than ever. So like even something that you thought you knew last year, this year is a year where you just don't know. You cannot say anymore, oh, well, it's always been this way for me. Like say it if you want to, but I'm telling you, it's different this year, right? Like it's different this year. So when I catch myself being like, well, this is how I've always done it, or these are always have been my outcomes, or this has always been my experience, it's like, ooh, flag, take note. Like Meaghan, this is the year where things could be different, right? Tim Ferriss, fear setting is an awesome resource to move past worst case scenarios. Yes, absolutely. Love that. Okay. The other one I love around questions around fear is the Byron Katie's The Work. If you just Google it, it will come up. She's got a free PDF on her website, which I find really helpful. Okay. January, which is where we are right now. 7 energy year, 8 energy month. Okay. So when I was kind of like assessing, like, what are the general trends coming up here? It's really interesting because last year, the last 2 months went 8, 9. This year, the first 2 months go 8, 9. Okay. So January is an 8, February is a 9. And so for lots of reasons, I don't necessarily think that January is like, all the cultural conditioning around January is like, go time, do it, set the goal, go to the gym, like throw everything out of your cupboards. Like, first off, in numerology speak, your year is your birthday. So if your year isn't anywhere near January, this is just one of many opportunities to look at your life and ask yourself some questions and tune in to what you like and don't like, right? Like that's to me, that's a simple, easy process. I love to dial in and do these types of practices regularly. It's not a one and done. It's not like I just look in January and then we're good. I will do deep dives in January, my birthday, and usually the solstices, and then whenever else I'm so inclined. But then I weekly will also assess so that I'm always course correcting and adjusting. I remember when I was doing some training, I used to do a lot of coaching around money and money in business. And I was working with this one teacher, and she was like, if you review your budget once a month, you get 12 chances a year to course correct. If you review your budget once a week, you get 52 chances a year to course correct. And I was like, oh, right. And so I look at the energetics that way. I like to tap in at least weekly and lots of times daily, right? And so I'm saying this to say, like, take this, but layer it with the other pieces, right? A lot of people will align themselves with the wheel of the year. People will align themselves with whatever cultural alignment feels right to them. In numerology, it makes sense to align yourself with your birthday, but there's also 7 other opportunities you have to align yourself. So it's never a one and done. There's always patterns upon patterns. If you didn't get January started off the way you wanted to, you're not screwed. You always have multiple cycles and multiple opportunities to choose again. Okay, so 7, 8, 7, 8. Or sorry, 8, 9, 8, 9. January is an 8 energy month. I feel like we're going to be kicking into a little bit of flow. And then we're going to find a few more weeds. To be honest, that's kind of how I feel it's going to go. We're kicking into some flow and then we're finding some more weeds, and that's okay. That's part of the process. But I think it's important to know it's part of the process so that when you do bump into a few more weeds along the way, that you don't take that as a sign to stop. I always struggle when people are like, oh, like I got a sign from the universe that I should like X, Y, Z. And if it's a positive sign, then great. Like I'm all for it if it's a positive sign, but it's this, what is that called? Confirmation bias? We're going to talk about all the biases today. If it's a negative sign, like, do you have to listen to it? Like really tune in and be like, do I have to listen to this as a no? Like, is it truly a no? Or am I just afraid and I'm ascribing that no meaning to something because I'm afraid? So just, the universe isn't bossy. That is just a really important point these days. The universe is not bossy. It's not going to tell you what to do. The universe will support you. Your spiritual support team will support you. The flow of energies that I'm going to share with you will help you tap into that, and they will support you. They're not going to boss you around. They're not going to tell you what to do. Your free will and choice is the most important thing, right? So even if you've hit roadblocks along the way, tune in and ask yourself, do I want this to be a yes or a no? Right? Do I wish I was being told yes when I'm being told no? And then it's time to like reevaluate, like, how do I work through that? Okay, I'm just looking at this comment here. Yeah. We have been doing a lot of reorienting the last few years. And this is what happens in times of immense change, right? And I wish I could say like, oh, like we just do the thing and then the change clicks into place and off we go. Like, I wish I could say that. But I can speak for my own, experience, as well as the like hundreds of people who share their experiences with me and ask for insight around it. And that it is a lot of reorienting. It is a lot of finding our way through the unknown. It is like imagining the analogy that gets sent to me all the time is imagining that we spent, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it is, driving on this well-worn freeway. Okay. That's a neural network in your brain. Right? This is how my life has been. I'm working through it in this way. I now have a neural network system, a brain wave system, like all the neurons and everything pointing me on this certain freeway. So when I get on it, I get on it. I don't even have to think about my turns or anything. It's all automatic. Okay. And then change starts to happen, right? Whether it's you choosing that you don't want to be on that freeway anymore, or maybe like the freeway is under construction and you actually can't take that road anymore. It doesn't matter why. For whatever reason, you have to come up with a new path. Well, that's like an overgrown jungle, the new path. You've never driven that way. You've never walked that way. You have no idea how to find your way in that way yet. So it's not like you can just wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, I'm going to walk the jungle path and it's going to be easy peasy. I wish it was easy peasy. And maybe there are circumstances where it is easier and circumstances where it's more difficult. But in my experience, it takes many choices of being like, no, I'm still choosing the jungle path. Yep. There's a big tree in my way. I'm going to sit and look at it for a few minutes, but I still choose to be on the jungle path. And then with that choice, I actually develop a nervous system that's comfortable on the jungle path, that's okay with the jungle path. And as I develop that relationship with the jungle path gets easier. And then now the path starts to become walked, right? Because I've been walking it. So it becomes walked. So not only am I comfortable in a bumpy path, but by walking it, it's become smooth. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So it's not just me and it's not just the universe. It's my relationship and the universe working together. Like we're in this together. It's not one or the other. It's both of us. So just to kind of give an analogy to that, to kind of maybe have another way of looking at it, it's like I was doing cold plunges last winter. Okay. The first few cold plunges I did were like literally the most terrifying things ever. Like I was going into the lake in the winter where there's snow on the ground. Okay. And I was like, I might die. Like people get frostbite and they get hypothermia. And like, thank God the hospital is only 10 minutes away. And I'm going to like preheat my car. And I had to like have all these strategies in place because I was terrified. Right. Well, as I did it, like anything, it got easier. Technically, the lake didn't get warmer, but I had now developed a nervous system that was comfortable walking into a freezing cold lake, right? That's just a one-way relationship. Okay, that's a one-way relationship. But when you're talking about changes in your life, when you start to make them, like whether it's like changes around your work, changes around your relationships, changes around who you believe you are and how you connect with the world, that's a two-way relationship, right? So how the universe shows up for you and how you show up for the universe, it's reciprocal. There's reciprocity there. Okay. But it's a relationship. Like when you meet a friend for the first time, you aren't besties instantly. It usually takes multiple show ups to know that you're there for each other. Okay. And let me add, the other really cool thing about this is that there's a field. Okay. There's a field, as evidenced by the now currently 66 of us on this call. There is a field of people, the 66 of us, plus the bunch of others on the replay, plus those of you who might listen to this multiple times, plus people who are doing other work in other corners of the world who have no idea about anything that we're up to, who are all choosing to reorient right now, who are all like, I'm not choosing that annoying freeway anymore. I want something different. And when we make that choice and they make that choice, it actually contributes to a collective field, right? Like when people talk about the word like the collective, it can sound like a weird, like nebulous thing. But the concept that at least I mean when I speak about things like the field or the collective is that the thoughts, ideas, intentions, emotions, experiences, everything that's going on in our hearts and minds and bodies, they're like electrical impulses in the air that can connect, right? And that are connecting. Like that's why we're able to connect on places like things like magical Zooms and Instagram and wherever else. We are all energy. And so when I'm like, no, I'm not doing things that way anymore. I'm doing them this way. I'm going to walk through that jungle, whether it's easy or hard, I'm going to do it. Right. And all of a sudden I'm walking along and I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's Vicky and there's Carly and there's Leanne and there's Melanie. And oh, wow, like I'm not here by myself. I don't have to figure this out alone. Like there's other people here. We are doing this together. And whether I like physically am walking with them and I can like go over and have a cup of tea at their house, or we're internet friends, or we don't even know each other, but we can feel the vibe that something's different. That is going to be the energy this year. And that is going to be really kicking in, particularly in March. Okay. So if you start off feeling a little bit like, oh, okay, I'm trying, I'm not sure, like, don't take that to mean a no, right? Constantly go back in and say to yourself, what do I want to be true? And pick that thing. Pick the thing you want to be true. Okay. January. So, momentum, flow, depth, abundance. There is a lot of energy around finance, freedom, and abundance. And I really believe it's mindset work to actually create tangible outcomes in the coming year. So one of the big themes that came up as I went through each day, basically through the entire year, this big theme of like, if we want physical abundance, money, income, financial assets to look different than they did in the past, that starts with the energetics, right? So before my money can look different than it did in the past, I first have to have a different idea around money and a different relationship with money. And my favorite author around this work would be Joe Dispenza when he talks about charging your magnet. So you have a thought, right? And then you charge the magnet with feeling, with emotion, right? And this actually is, he talks about it in terms of like the quantum physics, where it's like the thought is the particle. Is that what it is? That the when you add the, I'm going to mess this up because it's been a while since I've read the book, but it's like when you have the wave and then the wave turns into a particle, it's got something to do. Anyways, if you want to know that stuff, go check out his work because it's very brilliant around it. But it's this idea that the thought and then you charge it with the emotion creates this like momentum and this energy behind something. So if I have that around my money, the next step is the thoughts become things and the money begins to reflect that, or the finances begin to reflect that. So letting yourself think and feel about money differently. And to me, what's really been helpful for that is like, what makes me feel wealthy? What makes me feel prosperous, right? Like, yes, definitely. If I open up my bank account and there's like a good amount of money in there, I'm like, woohoo, I'm rich, right? But at the end of the day, having money in the bank account, like if it's not doing something for my experience, what is it doing for me, right? And if it's making me feel safe, if it's making me feel stable, if it's making me think, oh, I'm safe for retirement, that's one thing. But when I really tuned into how do I experience wealth on a daily basis, one of the things that makes me feel the most wealthy is walking my kids to school and walking to pick them up at the end of the day. That has always been, that's close to my heart because I grew up in a very remote and isolated location. And so to me, walking my kids to school makes me feel rich. It's also something that I never really, like, I always thought like, oh, that'd be so cool, but it felt out of reach. So when I got it, I was like, oh, wow. Like the thing I used to think was like out of reach or only certain people could do that or only certain people could have that actually is my reality now. So really taking the time to think like what makes me feel rich, right? Prepping fresh food at lunch makes me feel rich. You know, like good cup of tea makes me feel rich, like whatever. I mean, I don't know what it is for you, but thinking about like what makes me feel rich, what makes me feel prosperous and wealthy and having ease and having spaciousness. Yes, Catherine, I love that. Spaciousness and ease is so good. Money is an energy exchange. Absolutely. And once you understand it, magic happens. Money, not only is money an energy exchange, but, you know, as I used to talk about a lot when I would teach about it, is money is a subjective measure of perceived value. It's not as like concrete as many of us have been conditioned to believe it is. Evidenced by the fact that a condo you can buy in Kelowna, you know, for like $750,000 would be like 300,000 in Saskatchewan. And it's the same freaking condo. Why is that? Right? Evidenced by the fact that when you go get a manicure at one of those drop-in places in the mall and they use the OPI nail polish and you pay $30 for it, and then you go to a high-end spa where they use the exact same OPI polish and you pay $150 for it. Subjective measure of perceived value. And that loosens our grip a little bit. And loosening our grip a little bit allows space for the magic to flow in. So mindset work around money is going to be a theme all year. I'm going to give you some dates though, particularly the 14th and the 15th of January. This feels like a financial portal time for me, the 14th and the 15th of January. There's abundance, prosperity, and openings of redefining financial freedom. And this feels like the energy work that's going to create physical outcomes in the coming months. So letting yourself take time on these days to do the energy work of like, what does abundance feel like to me? And dosing yourself with it, right? Because if you say to yourself, like, what would I do if I had $1 million? It's like, oh, like I'd sleep in and then I'd go and have coffee down by the beach. Then do that today, whether you have $1 million or not, do it today so you can dose yourself with that. And then of course, you're going to have to like, you know, create the action steps or whatever it is down the road to do it. But this feels like an important time to do the energy work of it. The other thing I want to say when I'm giving you guys dates, if you're like, oh crap, I can't do it that day because I'm on night shift and I'll be working. It's okay. It's not like the door slams shut and you're screwed. Do it the day after or do it the day before. It's okay, right? Energy follows a bell curve. It's not like a light switch. So there'll be times where it's peak, but you can still access it on either end of the peak. Okay. Buy a new car and travel the world. January 14th and 15th feels like that financial freedom portal. The 21st of January is another incredibly important date. This is a karmic money day where opening yourself up to new ways of accessing wealth and abundance is very important. So 21st, karmic money day. Be open to receiving money in new ways. Be open to thinking about money in new ways. The next day I want to talk about, it would be the 28th of January. I will do a little handout that I'll send out later with some of these dates on. So if you don't catch them all, you'll get the replay, you'll get the handout, whatever. You can listen to this a few times. But yeah, so the 28th of January is another day where I would highly recommend spending some time in meditation, in contemplation, a walk in nature, like whatever it is that allows you to feel centered, because this is a time when you're going to notice almost like a separation of a bit of the old shedding and then an activation of a bit of the new. So it is, I don't know even what to call that, like potentially a new timeline, a portal. There's definitely some like separation energy happening where we're leaving some of the old behind. Okay, any questions about January? This is a time in January with the 8 energy month. Don't shy away from doing your work, right? Don't shy away from doing your work. Let yourself let yourself lean in, right? I think it's really important for us to remember that because we're living in cyclical energy patterns, it's okay to have time where you're like, I'm going to put in a long day today. Doesn't mean that you're like subscribing to hustle culture and you're going to put in long days forever. Like it's okay to do a long day here and there and then take a rest day here and there, or any other combination thereof, right? You get to work that for you. Okay. 26, James. Ooh, that's a big energy shift day as well, because it's a 7 energy day. So that's going to be because the day energy matches up with the annual energy, the year energy. It'll be a really strong day for everybody. Like this is James' birthday, so it'll be relevant to him. But for everybody, it's a strong day to tap into your intuition and to like take a leap of faith, trust yourself, try something different, like learn to like be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do today, and just like freaking do it. Just do it. It's that fucking energy of like, okay, like this is what I want. So fuck it. I'm going to do it. Like, it's okay. Right.
And it's my birthday, so I can do what the fudge I like.
Exactly. Linda is saying, oh, Linda, I'm so sorry about hearing about your loss. Yes. The 28th. And you know, honestly, Linda, I would say that based on the combination of energies on the 28th, the veil is thin that day. That's why we have access to insights. So if this is something that speaks to you, like you'll be able to connect, you know, energetically and with your heart. Interestingly, your husband bought you the work for Christmas. It's perfect timing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's a great time in January to do money mindset work. Absolutely. Okay. February. Let's tune into February. So February is a 9 energy month. December was also a 9. Okay. So remembering that December for a lot of us was kind of like, okay, I'm going to speak for myself and you guys can tell me if you felt it too, but I felt like I was a little bit like kind of underwater. Like there was stuff happening and I was just like, la, 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 in my own little world a little bit, but also like a little bit like pushing a lot of water. Like it just felt like, I don't know, maybe under gel is a better term than water because it felt like kind of sticky. And like my own relationship with 9 energy, like, and this is something you'll learn as you study this, is like your relationship with different numbers is going to be unique to you, right? I don't love endings. I don't love completions. I don't love that part, right? I like more of the earlier stage, and that's okay. And it's okay to be like, I don't really love how this energy feels for me in this moment. it's temporary. It's not going to last. A new cycle will come and you'll be good. Some people love it, right? Some people like that whole thing of being like, putting this behind me, putting that behind me, done with this, cut the cords, burn the pages, clean out the closet, and off we go. And if you're one of those people who loves that, that's great. I'm terrible at decluttering. I'm terrible at it. I try to make myself do it because I know it's good, but I tend to, especially books and tarot decks, I hang on to things way too long. So, but then again, it's like, okay, Meaghan, like you could beat yourself up for not loving 9 energy, or you can just be okay with that, right? Like it's okay. So the point of that story is to say there is going to be endings and completions. There is also going to be that sense of like, I am so done with this. Like I'm done with it. Why is it still annoying me? Like that irritation feeling that like, of like, I don't want, like, I already told the universe I was done. Why is this thing here still? Like, are you not gone yet? And I think like remembering, like an hourglass. So say you flip the hourglass over because you're like, I'm done with this. And you're now waiting for the sand to collect to the bottom. There are certain things that we can, quantum leap and be complete. But the more I do this work, the more I realize that sometimes we shortchange ourselves by not being present to the process, by wishing for a quantum leap, wishing things would just hurry up and sort themselves out. We actually shortchange ourselves. That by allowing space and allowing time and being okay with the discomfort, we actually let ourselves experience an even greater outcome. And not that we should do it for the outcome, we should do it for the breadth and depth and richness of what it means to be human. And I know we've all heard that expression of like, your willingness to like accept the struggle is going to be proportionate to the amount of joy you can access, right? And I don't know, like the polarity that we sometimes deal with is not easy. And I will say that when we are facing difficulties or challenges, when we are feeling like stretched to the max, this is a part of an initiation. This is how we develop our strengths. When life feels like a walk in the park, it's wonderful in that moment. Don't get me wrong, but your skills are not growing. Okay. So sometimes, and this isn't all the time, this isn't going to be like a universal truth for the rest of your life, but there are moments in time when you will be like, this is fucking hard, right? And it's like, for me, when those moments come up, reminding myself of like, oh, okay, because energy works in polarity bands. The challenge that I'm experiencing is proportionate to the gift I will receive, right? So if you are being challenged in 7 energy, okay, challenged in 7 energy looks like, I feel really stuck. I don't know how to make a decision. I'm really afraid to move forward. I'm lacking trust. I feel like I have no idea what direction I'm going in. Okay, that's being stuck in 7 energy. If you feel that way, know that the flip of that energy is deep self-trust. It's deep connection with your inner guidance system. And it's that sense of knowing that no matter what circumstances the world brings to you, you are going to come out on top. So if you're feeling the like quote unquote shadow of the 7, feel it, let it be its thing. Be like, yeah, I am stuck right now, or whatever word you would use to describe it, right? And recognize that the flip of what I'm feeling is the gift that will be born. Not to rush through it, but to acknowledge it, right? The flip of what I'm feeling is the gift that will be born. Okay. So again, take what lands, leave what does not land. If it's not speaking to you, it's not for you, and that's totally fine. But recognizing that many of us, particularly if you are a sensitive energy worker, intuitive, working within a spiritual guidance team, inner guidance system, whatever, we have been undergoing an initiation for years, for fucking years. Okay. My heart is with you. And it's because your gift is needed. Your gift is needed, right? Your gift is needed. You need to be able to, not you need to, you get to choose your participation in this. But what I say to myself is the ability to hold space for what I want to hold space for is being developed. And that is something that gets developed incrementally, right? Not all at once. Develop a nervous system for it, right? We develop a capacity, mental, emotional, and energetic capacity for it, right? So you guys are not alone in feeling like you've been through the ringer, okay? You're not alone in it. And it's so funny because everyone, at least when I say, oh, the last few years have been hard, it's like, oh, COVID. And it's like, well, I mean, sure, that's part of it. Honestly, it doesn't feel like the bulk of it to me though, right? There's been challenges, don't get me wrong, but it feels like there's more than that. So if you felt like, I don't even know what to attribute the like density to, it's okay. You don't need to have a way to attribute it. You can just be like, it's been this way. I don't need a why. It's just been this way. And in that difficulty, that challenge, there is a gift that's being birthed, right? It's an initiation. I love to compare this to the myths of like knights heading out to quest, right? Like you can't be knighted unless you've been initiated, right? And there's many cultures around the world where you must undergo an initiation before you have the privilege of expressing certain parts of life, right? And just because, you know, I don't know, maybe it's not true in your world, but in my world, there's no initiation. It's like, okay, like you have all the things now. It's like the universe gives it to us, right? The universe gives it to us. Yeah. Wow, what did you do in a past life? If you're feeling like intense karma these days, especially because 2022 was a karma clearing year, yeah, it's not surprising. And I do want to say that the movement in 7 will shift things. And if you're feeling like the movement in 7, like 2023 7, the movement in 7 is not shifting things for you, reach out to someone who can help you with that, because struggling in it is not, you know, when you do this work, it's like we have stuff we're dealing with all the time, right? And it's like I can do it on my own, or I can do it by reaching out to someone. And there's a lot of stuff where it's important that we learn to walk it, right? With support though, not alone. And there's lots of times where it's like, just book the session. Just book the session. Right? So you know for yourself if it's a book the session thing or if it's something you can walk yourself through. But if you're feeling the intensity of the karma and it doesn't start to clear soon, it does really kind of feel like there's something that's still contributing to it that you might be able to shift, release, transmute, let go of. So just reach out to me if any of that's landing with you. Okay. February. Because of what is leaving in February, 9 energy month, completions, endings, surrender, there is a cloud being lifted. Okay. It's like you've been in the fog for a little while. Something's leaving, including some of that fog, and you will see a few things more clearly. There is fresh start energy coming in. The fresh start energy in particular will begin around the 18th of February. Backtracking, hold on to February 6th. There is going to be a very, very strong karmic day, karmic insight, realization. When I say karma, okay, let me just be clear on what I'm saying when I say karma. Karma means that in my usage of the term, there's lots of different ways people use this term, but in my usage of the term, karma just means rebalancing energy. It means the pendulum has swung really far in one direction, whether it's in this lifetime, in a past lifetime, or maybe in your ancestral lines. Okay, karma swung really far in one direction. The energy swung really far in one direction, and now it's time for there to either shift in the other direction or for there to be a harmony, balance in the middle, right? And oftentimes, if it's a personal lifetime pattern, we go through one side to the other and then we find our center. Okay, so And you can look at, when you're looking at your own karmic experience, if you're like, wow, like I've been really on this side with a certain issue for a really long time, you can ask yourself, is this me currently, this lifetime? Is this an ancestral thing? Right? Many of the women entrepreneurs I work with are challenges around finance, money, marketing, and sales is ancestral, because being an entrepreneur as a woman in business is only like 2 generations, guys. 3 generations ago, we did not exist. That's ancestral, right? That's okay. That doesn't mean we're destined to struggle. That just means an awareness and acknowledgement of that energy shift, to recognize that we're shifting it, and that's a big deal. The next thing you can ask yourself is it multi-lifetime? And sometimes your heart or your intuition will tell you, and then the actions you take from there might be a little different depending if it's personal, multi-lifetime, or ancestral. Okay, so on the 6th of February, strong karma, strong insights, strong intuition. So what would you do? What would you do to navigate that? My go-tos would be journal, reflection, and I like to talk things through. So I would gather with a close and trusted friend, someone who I like. When you pick a friend to process this kind of stuff with, you need to pick a friend mindfully, right? You don't want to pick a friend who's like got their own stories they're going to project onto you, right? You need to pick a friend who's really good at holding space and letting you feel and see your own truth. If you have a hard time picking a friend like that, that's totally fine. Those friends are rare and precious. Reach out to a good coach or a good intuitive reader. You can do it yourself through a tarot reading if that works for you, a numerology reading if that works for you, meditation, going for a walk, journaling, taking a bath, but giving yourself space to feel and interpret energy in whatever way you can do that the best. Okay, February 6th. Okay, the portal that I wanted to talk about. It starts on kind of the 16th or the 18th, kind of in that frame there of February. And the reason I'm like kind of the 16th, kind of the 18th is it's like it starts on the 16th and then it kicks into high gear on the 18th. And then you're working with it basically until the end of February. So what is this portal? This portal represents significant energy shifting. It represents, like I said, it's like you've been in this like foggy energy and the fog starts to clear and the fog starts to lift and you see things differently. And, kind of to go back to the story I talked about in the beginning about different perspectives of truth. What I want you to understand is when you see things differently, that's likely because the truth has shifted. What was true before may no longer be true. Truth, quote unquote, truth evolves and changes as our consciousness and perspectives, education and resources change, right? What we used to know as fact and truth grows and evolves when the field grows and evolves. Like even if you look at like, I don't know, the health sciences field or, certain types of biology or whatever field you want to pick. The truth in those fields shift and grow as the consciousness of the field shifts and grows. Wisdom, knowledge, consciousness, insight, all of that. So when this hits you around, say, the 18th of the month, you have these insights and you're like, holy man, things look different now. What I really want you to take to heart is please, like, take to heart that you're good. Like you didn't do something, because you didn't see it sooner does not make you wrong, bad, got it wrong, fucked it up, whatever. You saw it when you needed to see it and that's perfect, right? And so sometimes when we have these like awakening moments, we can be like, what? Oh my God. And I don't want you to like go back and like judge the, month ago or 6 year ago version of you or whatever, right? I want you to like embrace the insight with compassion and recognize like truth is growing, truth is evolving, and I can feel that field now. And that's a beautiful thing. Okay. So the reason I want you to do that is because around the 25th of February, so this portal, like I said, is like a 2-week portal going from basically the 16th to the end of the month. The 25th of the month, 25th and the 26th of February, there's going to be a time when strong insights are coming through, right? So it's almost like by the cloud lifting or the fog lifting, it's like the connection is clear now, right? It's like you had a bad connection on your phone and now you have a clear connection. Okay. So there's going to be insights coming through. Now, what does that even mean? Like when insights come through? For different people, it's going to look differently. For some of you, you're going to be like, oh, I read this book and like, oh my gosh, like major insights. Or for some of you, it'll be like, I got this class, or I took a training, or I stumbled across a random YouTube video, or somebody said something on Instagram and it, whoa, like it was like a flash, right? For others of you, it's going to be like, oh, like I'm just sitting doing my regular day-to-day life thing. And boom, I need to like pull out the journal or pull out the voice memo on my phone and like jot a bunch of stuff down because I'm like, wow, like I see things in a new way, right? And so giving yourself space and time to like process, receive, experience that on the 25th and the 26th. And if you're like me and you need to talk it through, find that person who you can talk it through with because it's helpful, right? I also think that the talking it through, we don't always realize, like if I reach out to someone and I'm like, I need to talk this through, I'm like, oh, this is for me, right? Like I'm talking it through for me, but we don't realize like what a gift it is to be the person who's asked to hold space, right? Like when someone reaches out and it's like, can you hold space for me to like do the thing? That's a gift, right? So be the person who's like brave enough to ask for what you need. Okay, and then the 28th, there is a lot of new start energy. So if you love the new start energy, February 28th is going to be your jam, right? Venting can be healing, absolutely. Okay, and I know that this is going long, so come and go as you need to, and recognize you can always, I'll be sending the recording out, I'll be sending handouts as well. One of the things I like to do with things like this, especially long ones, is like if you're writing in your planner, which I keep track of this in my Magic of I planner, you can timestamp it of like, okay, at the, hour and 8-minute mark, she's finally getting onto March. So when March rolls around, you can fast forward the first hour of stuff and just listen to March if that's what you want. You can kind of timestamp it. I also think depending on what system you use to listen to the replay, you can listen to it on like 2 times speed to move it ahead quicker to get to where you want to be. I do not align astrology with numerology. As someone's asking in the comments, but I do think it's brilliant to do so. And I do believe there are some numerologists who I've trained who do that. I do reach out to numerologists or astrologists and get a personal numerology reading every year because I think it's fun and I like to. But you can absolutely layer numerology, astrology, human design, like anything that speaks to your heart. You can pick one or any combination thereof and see how they work together. There is the Alchemy of Numbers that I'll be teaching coming up in about a month. There is a astrology overlap, but it is not traditional astrology. So there is an astro-numerology influence that I will be teaching on. And if astronumerology is something anyone's interested in, I'm going to be offering a free training at the end of January. I believe it's January 26th. You should all be on my email, so you'll get notification. But I'll be offering a free training about your astronumerology gifts. So I'm going to be talking about that at the end of the month, which will be really fun. But you can also overlay it with Western astrology, Vedic astrology. Like it's one of those things where the system that speaks to you, lean into it. Okay, March. And March is one energy, like thank freaking God. Okay. March is one energy. Initiations, new beginnings. It is going to be very, very important that you connect in March. Okay. Do not isolate in March. Connect in March. And there's 2 ways of connection that's really being highlighted. Number 1, finding people who you can connect with, who you can say the crazy things to, who you can risk to fail around, and they will only celebrate you. Like, you know what I'm talking about, those people who you can be like, I fucked up, this is what I did and it sucked, and they can be like, good job, I'm so proud of you. You're like, thank you. Find those people. You know, when we talk about 7, we talk a lot about finding your center and reorienting to your center. You guys have heard me talk about this a lot, in self-trust. Well, there's another piece of the puzzle that isn't often spoken about, which is, as humans, we are not meant to regulate in isolation. And sometimes too much focus on self-trust can lead to isolation, particularly if it's born out of fear. Like, if I've been let down and people have like not supported me, not met my needs, whatever, and I'm like let down, I will isolate under the guise of like self-trust, and that becomes like hyper independence, which is very isolating, right? Especially if I've been told I'm wrong, I'm crazy, whatever, because of mistakes I've made, or because of the journey I've been on, right? Or because other people don't understand my path, or for whatever reason. I mean, I know all of us on this call here has probably have felt that like judgment of like, I'm crazy, or there's something wrong, or whatever the story happens to be, right? So what happens is we're like, okay, well, count on yourself then, right? And it's good to count on yourself. I'm not dissing that. And it's also healthy to be able to count on other people and to co-regulate and to figure out who you are in relation with like loving, trustful humans. So connecting yourself, co-regulating, finding somebody or a group of people who you can co-regulate with is critical, right? Is really, really critical, especially in March. And so finding that circle. And recognizing that a lot of the times when we think the circle doesn't exist, it's because we haven't asked for it, right? It's because we haven't asked for it. So you can ask the universe, your guides, whatever, like I'm looking for that circle. I want these people in my life. I want someone who I can tell all my crazy ideas to, and they will love it. And they'll share their crazy ideas with me, right? Like, ask for that. To the universe, but also like to the people in your area, right? Like, you can reach out to people in your area and be like, hey, like, do you want to have a coffee date? I had some friends do that over the last little while, like people who I'd never met before, who messaged me online and was like, hey, do you want to like go for a cup of coffee? And it's so freaking fun. And can we normalize that it's not always easy to find a new group of people as adults? So like, let's be awkward and weird and figure it out anyways. And the worst that can happen is the person says no, and we don't meet up. Like, that's okay. I never met up in the first place anyway, so I'm no worse off, right? I'm no worse off. So let yourself take a risk in that. Find your community. Also, I would say being part of a circle. So whatever that means to you, whether it's a training you're in, whether it's a monthly circle you join, some kind of circle, right? Because that connection with a group of other people who are willing to try things differently is really, really important. The other thing I would say is it's through the willingness to open our heart and connect in different ways that your spiritual connection will grow. Okay. A lot of the times I will say to people, like, go and meditate, go and journal, go for a walk in nature. And that feels kind of like important at times, right? But it's also isolating. Sometimes being able to talk about your spiritual system, your intuitive connection, what you feel the universe means, or God means, or guides mean, like whatever words, language you want to put around whatever's going on for you. Sometimes being able to talk about it strengthens it. And I don't even want to say sometimes, like, I want to say all the time. Okay. I'm willing to be argued against for that. But my feeling right now is it's so important, right? It's so important. Find the other freaks, right? Absolutely. Celebrate the weirdness. So talk about it. Don't let it just be a thing that you do by yourself. Find communities who are also making moves and trying different things. The 10th of March, The 10th of March is a time where there's opportunities for new income streams. So remember how I said back, I think it was in January, where I was like, you're going to do some of the energetics around money, and then you're going to start to see some of the evidence crawling in. The 10th of March is one of those days. So whether it's that the money actually starts to land, or whether you're planning, like you're, creating a marketing plan or creating an email sequence or building a product or designing the logo, like whatever it is, it's either actively open or you're doing the things to open the door. There's something about the pathway that's being cast. That's a good way to put it. The pathway being cast at this point in time. The other thing that's really important in the month of March is to be treating things with a little bit more lightness and softness. Sometimes the density and the heaviness that we've been feeling can become more of a habit than what's actually happening, right? Like, it's just like we get used to things being heavy, so they're heavy even when they're not, but we're just so used to it, we didn't even notice that things weren't. So it's like just let yourself, like, can I just be a little lighter? Like, can I just be a little lighter? Does it have to be as heavy and serious? Like, let the lightness come in. Okay. The 20th of March is going to be a very, very intense energy day. So for some of us, this is going to be fires of creativity. So if you are making something, creating something, and I would say that you are a maker if you create. And if you, like, I often joke, like, my Instagram page is like my art, right? I don't know if you guys have ever heard me joke about that before, but I'm like, making like a little graphic or making a little reel or putting a little story with a song, like, that is making art. Okay. That is my form of making art. Maybe you like to, I don't know, design a product. Maybe you are going to put together something. Like, how you make, you get to define that, just because this is so important right now, you guys. So important. The definitions of all of that are changing. Like, we used to think for something to be art, it couldn't be digital, right? That's not true anymore. Like, we're allowed to think differently if it serves us. Like, you can have digital art, you can have whatever the heck kind of art you want. Okay. So let yourself make art. If your business, like, to me, my business is part of my art, right? It's my body of work. It's my art. It is like my craft. It is like what I love. Like, so then I'm going to use that day to make something creative work-wise, right? Maybe you feel like you want to, like, redecorate your house, or you want to do baking or do dancing. I have no idea. Let yourself create on the 20th. The shadow side of this intense creative energy is going to be stress, anxiety, and worry, and it will likely manifest in financial worries. Okay. It doesn't mean they're real. It just means that oftentimes, you'll if you have a habit of worrying about something, when the energy of worry surrounds you, your brain is like, oh yeah, right, we're supposed to worry about money because that's what we always worry about. Even if it's maybe not like the thing to be worried about in that moment. Worry and anxiety are stuck creative life force energy with nowhere to be directed. Okay. So if you feel worry and anxiety, ask yourself, where does my life force energy want to be directed in fun, creative, playful ways, right? And it doesn't have to be serious. Like, go play, go do something fun, like go jump on a trampoline, or I don't know, do whatever. Okay. By letting yourself use that creative energy wisely, and by wisely, I just mean don't be spinning in worry. By letting yourself, it's almost like, what's that? Off gas, off gas that energy. Be productive with it or not, I don't care, but let it move. The 21st opens up the door for some new financial stability. Okay. New financial stability. So for all of us, that's going to mean different things. If you're looking for like tangible actions to take, just ask yourself, what would add an element of financial stability today? For some people, it'll be like, oh, I just need to update my bank accounts. Or for some people, it'll be like, oh, I'm going to ask my boss for that raise. Or for some people, it'll be like, oh, I'm going to put a new product out there. I'm going to raise my prices, whatever it is. Ask yourself, what's going to add an element of stability? That is the 21st of March, financial stability. The 23rd of March, This whole idea of your body of work, okay? I don't know if you have a relationship with the body of work or not, but I would highly encourage you to develop that, whether you know what that is in this moment or not. Set the intention that you do have a body of work. Every single one of us does. Even if our desire and like experience is to be like hermits that live on a mountaintop and literally interact with no other human being out there, that's okay. You still have a body of work to embody, which means a frequency that you hold and maintain and a reason why you're here. Okay. So I used to think a lot about life purpose as like a doing or like a contribution. Okay. And yes, it's wonderful to contribute, but I also believe now that our frame of mind around contribution is narrow. Contribution is holding an energetic frequency or an energetic pattern. So if I decide that I'm going to sell everything and go and live in a cave somewhere and talk to no one, grow my own food and just not even talk to the person who drops off the random supplies I can't even grow myself. Like if I'm going to go and do that, I am still gridding a frequency on this planet and my existence matters as important. Okay. And so I really want you to take to heart that, you know, because this is the thing that we have been carrying for so many years is that I don't matter. I'm not significant. I'm not important. What I do is irrelevant. It makes no difference to the outcome of the planet, the outcome of society, the outcome of humanity. Okay. That is a belief that has been conditioned that is ready to shift. And the only way that shifts is if you start to claim that your frequency, your existence is significant. Okay. And part of that, in my mind, at this point anyways, is this concept of developing a body of work, whether you talk about it or not, whether you publicly share it, like I share my body of work, like I'm doing right now with you. But even if I didn't, even if I did all this and kept it to myself, that's okay. I don't have to share it. I can keep it to myself and it's still my body of work. So I challenge you to think about like, what is my body of work, whether I express it or not, whether I share it or not, whether I keep it to myself or not, whether I keep my 9 to 5 or whatever else I happen to be doing or not, you still have a body of work and there's still a very strong reason why you're here. And this is going to come up more and more, but it's my little rant around this is particularly related around March 23rd. God, is this going to be like hours long? Guys, I'm sorry. Apparently I have a lot to say. Like we're March and I'm an hour and a half in. Okay, Meaghan, pick up the pace. Yeah. Body of work, 23rd. Think about that. Challenge yourself around that. The 31st of March, major intense energy around change. Okay. Change. So if you are feeling restless or itchy or uncomfortable or like, oh, I need to do something different, like do something different. Even if you don't know what the thing is, just randomly start trying different things to get into the energy of change. You know, when people talk about like attracting like, this is so true in 7 energy that any change is better than nothing, right? Like I talked about before, being stuck means you're really, really stuck, whereas being in flow and making decisions and course correcting on as you go is much more auspicious in 7 energy, right? So major change on the 31st of March. Think differently, try something different. If you've always thought to yourself, well, this is how I always do things, don't do it differently and see what happens. Like totally try it different. It's also incredibly important that you allow yourself to open up to new ways of like, it's the initiation, right? So like, it's like, it's because it's one energy, it's planting the seed, it's thinking about something, it's planning something. And it's like, let that be different somehow for you. Okay. So just whatever that looks like for you. Major change, retirement. I love it. Okay. April. Let's go into April. 2 energy. The theme about connection and relationship being important continues, particularly being that it's a 2 energy month. So anytime we have 2 energy around, it's always going to talk about relating, right? Like how we relate. So it can be 2 people coming together in relationship, but it can also be like, how do I relate with myself, with my intuition, my guides, my spirit, the universe? How do I relate with that? And it's also going to be with, how do I relate with like my compass? Like, what is your compass? What is your North Star? What helps you make decisions? What helps you to know, is this the right thing or the wrong thing? Right? And this is a great time to reevaluate your values, to reevaluate your why, to reevaluate like, what is my contribution? I'm going to get into that in a second, but just really kind of update your values and just really check into like, okay, why do I do the things I do? And does this align with what my priorities are? Right? Our values, like when I say values, I mean things like connection, freedom, adventure, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, when I'm making choices, I am investing in that energy. So if I'm saying right now, my top value is connection, when I make a decision, I'm investing in connection, right? Or to make a decision, I'm investing in adventure, freedom, whatever, right? Those are my top three. So being aware of like, I'm choosing this because I'm choosing to invest in something. And when I invest in something, it's going to create physical, tangible results in my world. Right. And so thinking about like, what is it that I'm choosing to invest in, and having some awareness around that. April 5th is going to be a download day of creative inspiration. Again, we all, this is not passive. Okay. I just want to say this about everything I'm saying right now. The energy is swirling around you. If you ignore it, probably very little will change. I mean, I don't know, could make an experiment and see, but it requires your decision to interact with it, right? So if I'm like, oh, it's a download day, if you decide to like binge watch Emily in Paris, you may get a download. I don't know, maybe that show inspires you. For me, if I binge watch Netflix, I don't usually have a lot of space for creative thinking. The 5th of April is a download day. So if I look at my charts and I'm like, oh, here's a download day, I'm going to do what I need to do to get in alignment with that energy, right? And this is when people talk about the word alignment, this is how I interpret it to mean. It's like, oh, do I want to download? Yes, I do. So what do I need to do? I need to get my journal and a good cup of coffee and sit down with one of my favorite crystals, maybe put some high vibe music on and just be for a minute, even if it's like 15 minutes. Okay. But if I'm like really like, ooh, I want to download, I'm going to go to my favorite coffee shop and I'm going to block off the entire morning and I'm going to sit and write for like 3 hours. Right. And now I've really made myself available for that energy. So this is to me what alignment means, right? Again, when I talked about like in the month before, friendship and connection and all that being really important, again, that will create opportunity for you if you align with it. Okay. The 8th of April is a day where I literally just wrote down connections are gold, meaning that community, partnership, working with other people, letting yourself be in a vulnerable relationship with people. And when I say vulnerable, I mean truth-telling relationships where you like let your heart be what leads, right? Those are very valuable in terms of financially supportive. Okay. So it's one of those things where it's like who you connect with, you're going to amplify abundance for each other. So it could be something like, oh, I'm going to help you promote a product, or, oh, let's go into a business partnership together, or, oh, I have an investment idea. Like I want to share it with you and, join me if you want, or whatever, right? Like, I don't know, for all of us, it's going to look different, but what is going to be the dominant energy is that it's through your relationships that new financial opportunities emerge. Sales are strong on the 10th of April. So if you're someone who's in sales, taking advantage of that entire week, particularly starting on the 10th of April, with lots of communication, marketing, putting yourself out there, talking about things, being persuasive, being invitational. You will have magnetism and like charm on your side. So that means that there's that energy is going to be surrounding you. You can work with it. So that in that window of time, so the 10th of April is the sales day I talked about, the 12th of April, so just 2 days later, there is going to be this idea of a high awareness and values. So, to me, the reason why the concept of sales kind of can get an icky name to it is the concept of manipulation and lack of truth telling, right? If I have opportunities and I am in integrity with the value, and when I say value, I don't just mean money, right? I mean like values, like what are my values and what kind of life do I want to live? If it's in integrity with all that, like share them with me, please, because I want to invest in that. Like I want to know what's in alignment and integrity with the kind of life I want to live. I want to know what that is so I can say yes, right? So if I'm the customer being like, please tell me what's in alignment with me and what's important to me, tell me. It's your job as the salesperson to be like, here's an opportunity. Here's who it's for. Here's who it's not for. Here's the values alignment. If you value these things, take a look, right? If you want, here's an option. Okay. So that kind of truth telling in sales is actually going to be very, very much in service. And this is one of the big shifts that will be happening is people's, bullshit detectors will be very, very high. And this is to your benefit. Like this is so to your benefit because like quote unquote bro marketing strategies, they stopped working and they're just like going to crash and burn, which is great. I love it. It makes me really happy. Okay. The 19th of the month. Again, there's another money day coming in here. And again, the stuff I talked about back in January about the energetic alignment with money is starting to manifest in April. So there's a few money days coming up, the 8th, the 10th, and the 19th of April, where new financial opportunities are starting to emerge based on the energetics that you've done. There will be on the 22nd of April, I called it a purpose alignment. Again, the concept of purpose, that's a very loaded word. What I mean by that is if you were like a watered down color before, your color will get more potent, more vibrant, more strong. And by doing so, you need more of the essence and less of the filler. Okay. More of the essence, less of the filler. So being more vocal, being more clear, no more tiptoeing. Talked about that in my promotion of this. No more tiptoeing. People want the vibrant version of you. They do not want the watered down version of you. And the tricky thing is none of us are purposely watering ourselves down. I mean, maybe some of us are, but most of us are like, no, I'm trying really hard here to be authentic and integrity and tell the truth. Right. And it's like, these are new ways of being. And so they're new pathways collectively and individually. But the really cool thing is the universe will support you if you want more of that. So if you're like, yeah, I want to be that more vibrant, potent expression and embodiment, it doesn't have to just be expression. It's both expression and embodiment. The 22nd will be a day that's really helpful for that. And then the 27th of April, there's a really strong wisdom portal opening here. And I said before that we undervalue our purpose being just literally like a frequency. And we over prioritize that my purpose is something I have to do or give, right? But I do want to say there is this idea of reciprocity, right? Where the act of giving and receiving expands goodness for both people involved, right? This has come up a few times on this call already where I talked about how nice it feels to be the person somebody else will reach out to and be like, well, you hold space for me while I process the thing, right? The giver gets something because they're processing, and the receiver also gets something because they're like, I'm holding space for you. Maybe they get some insights. Maybe their heart expands, like who knows, right? It's not for us to decide what they're getting out of it. But what I will say is that this window on the 27th, I'm calling it a wisdom portal, universal wisdom portal, where working with the law of reciprocity, which means letting yourself be the giver and the receiver, is going to open the doorway of that universal wisdom. So again, ideas, insights, some type of universal knowledge will be available to you if you let yourself be in reciprocal relationships with others. Okay, let's see here. Are we ready to jump into May? May is 3 energy. 3 is, I just literally wrote down creative fire. 3 is fire. 3 is very creative. You will want to use your creative energy wisely. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed and caught up in anxiousness. Melanie, absolutely. So April is a 2 energy month, but it does come from an 11, which means that the spiritual implications will be very strong. So the 11 impact in April is going to be more obvious to people who are working with a spiritual relationship of some kind. People who aren't, it won't affect them as much. But this entire year is highly spiritual, partly because it's being led by the 7, right? Which is very much about exploring the unknown through your relationship with who you are, who you're not, creator, what created you, where you go, where you don't go, where you belong, where you don't belong, based on like the inner of that, which is spirituality, whether you define yourself as a spiritual person, a religious person, like whatever, however you define that. It's like, how do I, like the whole idea of like morals, compass, contribution, like all this kind of stuff, understanding, like, am I here for a reason? Is there a point to all of this? Like, that's a classic 7 question that we get from exploring our spirituality, exploring our inner guidance system, deepening our relationships with our guides. For any of you who want a stronger relationship with your intuition, your guides, source energy, this is your year to lean into that in any way, shape, or form. So because April is an 11, it will be strong and it will be potent. And I think that's also why I felt called to really emphasize being in community with other people where you can talk about it, because that's where it doesn't have to be shrouded, right? Like, why should it be hidden, your spiritual gifts, right? Like, let someone witness them, even if it's just that one close friend. Let someone witness them, and hold space for that. Because I mentioned embodiment and expression before, and I'm not going to go deep on it in this call, but embodiment is the feeling it within you, and the expression is the sharing of it. And as humans, we need both. We really, really need both. And the embodiment and then the expression will have a laddering effect of, like, if I embody something and then I express it, it becomes even more deeply rooted. And then I express that, even more deeply rooted, express that, even more deeply rooted. So the potency will continue to grow as you relate with others, as you connect with others. And when I say others, I can mean both your community, human community, as well as the non-human community of your spiritual counterparts, your guides, energy, however you want to language that, right? The unseen realm, however you want to language that. So, did I answer that question? It's an incredibly important year for that. So for anyone who's feeling drawn to explore that, I would highly encourage you to do so, to find your way, to find your footing, and to find other people who will walk with you on that path. This is not meant to be an isolating path. Let's see this. April 27th. Let's look at that really quick. April 27th. Oh, interesting. Yeah, starting a year to hopefully settle a divorce. Absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting. You do have the 2 energy day, but it's also with the 2 energy month. It's going to be intense connection there. So hopefully it's intense connection with the new version of you, the new version of your relationships, the new version of your life, and a new way of relating with the person that you're settling in a divorce. I think that's huge. Okay. We're on May. May is a 3 energy month, creative fire. This is a time when leadership is really important. And for you to let yourself be a leader, for the mere fact that you're willing to think about things a little bit differently. Leadership and leading, we've been taught, is a hierarchy, right? There's a leader and there's a bunch of followers, right? Or whatever. That's like, no, we're done with the freaking hierarchies, okay? Like, nobody bestows that on you. You get to embody it. There's that word again. Apparently it's going to be a big one this year. You get to embody that and just walk your life like that. One of my favorite studies that I ever did, and it was replicating some other ones, of course, but when I was doing my master's degree, was the study on children's educational attainment. I actually did my master's thesis on this. Who knew I'd be talking about my master's thesis all these years later? Okay. So my thesis was on children's educational attainment. And I did a study to determine what determines children's educational attainment, meaning the grades they get in school, as well as will they go on to pursue, post-secondary of some kind. Okay. Does anyone have a guess as to what the biggest bearing of children's educational attainment was? Their mother's educational attainment. Whether she was in the workforce or not, whether she was working in that field, using those degrees or not, the mother's educational attainment was the number one, by far, most significant determinant of the children's educational attainment. My conclusions of that now are in understanding the fact that the mother, who likely spent most of the time raising the children, maybe that's not true in the future. Hopefully it's not true in the future, but in the past it was, right? Modeled a type of leadership, embodied a type of leadership, right? Whether she was active in the workforce or not didn't really matter, right? So whether she actively was like the boss of something, in charge of something, whatever, made no difference. Mattered that she had embodied it. And so I really want us to take this to heart, to look at like embodied leadership means I show up in a certain way, whether I'm like in charge or have a title matters not. It matters that I am like, this is how I'm going to walk the earth. And it is in that frequency and that vibration in my physical expression that influences, right? It's like leadership through influence by me choosing to be me. And leadership, again, not a hierarchy, also not all knowing, right? I can be a leader without having all the answers. I don't need to know everything. Do not let the fact that you don't know everything stop you from embodying in what you do know, what you do feel right, what you do feel to be true in your heart. Okay. So strong leadership month in May. On the 6th of May, there's going to be this really interesting insight that comes through, the 5th and the 6th of May, where it's almost going to be like something clicks into place, where we're going to recognize that we can create and honor financial goals without sacrificing what we most value. There's been this like collective belief around finances that always involved trade-off, right? Particularly if you were looking to grow your finances. It's like, if I want to grow my money, I have to sacrifice somewhere else. I either have to sacrifice my spending, right? That's the dominant narrative we're told around budgeting. It's like, oh, you want to make more money, you want to save more money, or you budget, restrict, right? I'm not saying that's wrong, right? If that's your choice, that's totally fine. But like, what if there's another way of looking at things? What if there's a way to become more stronger in your financial outlook, stronger in your financial leadership without sacrificing what's most important to you, right? Yeah, thank you. May, timestamp 1:37. Thank you for saying that. Looking at money differently, starting on May 6th. There's a lot around looking at money differently this year. Also, I want to add that change is very disorienting for people who have a high need for certainty. Okay. So if you look at the 6 core human needs, certainty is one of them. Okay. I know that Tony Robbins talks about this, and there's other people that talk about this too. So I don't exactly know what the original source is, but certainty is a human need, a basic human need. And there's a lot of people who need a high degree of certainty. Those people also tend to struggle with self-trust, right? There tends to be like an inverse relationship between those, right? If my self-trust is really, really low, I need a high degree of certainty in the world around me. because I don't trust myself otherwise to create it for myself, right? Like, please tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm too scared. I'm too uncertain. There's too many unknowns. Like, and I'm not saying it's wrong to get guidance and advice. It good, like do that, filtering it through yourself. But why it's so important in May is because change is disorienting for people who have a high need for certainty. This entire year, there's going to be a lot of change. You are the kind of people who can walk with others through this change. If you are someone who wants to provide that support for others who need more certainty, this is so needed, right? You get to be a helper. You get to be someone who walks with people, a guide, whether it's, in some type of coaching role, healing role, energy working role, whatever it is, even if it's just friendship or circle time or whatever. This is a great time, May, to be putting it out there that you're available to do that, I'm here, I will walk with you. How can I help you? How can I support you? Right? Letting yourself embody that leadership and letting yourself support others who are disoriented from the changes that they're facing. Thought leadership in action, particularly the 19th and the 20th. Okay, so thought leadership. So remember a while back I mentioned building your body of work. The 19th and the 20th is going to be another day to lean into what that means for you of building your body of work. I realize that sounds very official, like body of work. Does that mean I need to like publish a book? Like, no, you don't need to publish a book. Your body of work can just be like, this is what I want to see and believe about life. And I'm going to like hold that to be my body of work, right? But that is, it doesn't have to be official. I think when we make it like it's that pedestaling and hierarchy again, where it's like, well, a body of work is legitimate if it's this or if it's that. And it's like, if you find yourself thinking that of like, is mine good because it's different? Recognize that you're collapsing hierarchy energy and you're collapsing pedestaling energy. And that is a good thing, right? It's a good thing. Okay. June would be 1 hour 47. Theory of change and going first is what came up for me. So theory of change is this idea about like people who are early adopters to things, and then everybody else needing a density of evidence before they're willing to get on board. Okay. Recognizing that whether you are one of the people who likes to go first, whether you're one of the people who doesn't need a ton of evidence, you just need a gut feeling and then you kind of just jump right in, or what I think is really, really interesting, and getting a sense as to like, if you are an entrepreneur in particular, because this is such a leadership minded month, like, where are my clients in that? What do they need to feel good about embracing change? Like, what would support them? Right. And it kind of exploring the theory of change. I love Simon Sinek's work around this. So if you're interested in exploring that more, maybe watch some of his YouTubes or read his books. The other thing that's going to happen in June is much of the change that you guys will have been feeling energetically will start to be showing up in the physical. Okay. So there's going to be a lot more physical evidence. There's going to be a very strong clarity day kicking in on the 3rd and 4th of June. Very strong clarity days. Intuitive integrated leadership comes up on the 17th and the 18th of June. So 17th and 18th of June, intuitive integrated leadership. And remember how we've talked about this pendulum swing with karma, and this leadership styles are looking to be integrated as well. So whether you're leading others or yourself or your family, it doesn't matter, but recognizing that if there's been a certain dominance of leadership style, what's the integration of that? And I'm thinking, really quite literally between like, the masculine directive approach and the feminine receptive approach, and how important it is that there's an integration of receptivity and directiveness in order to lead, right? If you're all one or all the other, you'll need to find some balance either through partnership or learning to integrate those energies within yourself. If you are a creator, writing on the 25th. The 25th, write. So if you write to share it or write to keep it to yourself, the 25th and the 26th is a time to write. The 30th of June is about tuning into your why, particularly your why in terms of who you love, how you want to honor your loved ones. So whether it's family, family of choice, clients, whatever, mentors, your circle that you joined a few months before, whoever it is, loving on your loved ones and remembering why, right? This is so important at the last day of June. Okay, I'm trying to speed it up, guys, because I know I'm like, wow, if people are still 2 hours in, I'm going to lose you soon. I'm going to run out of steam here. This is why I try to do it as an overview and then monthly. So if you're liking this, make sure you come back for my monthlies when we go into more. Okay, July, 5 energy month. 5 energy month is going to be when, if you are a teacher or you're looking for teachers, like actively put yourself in learning mode. And everyone who is a teacher knows that the teachers are always learning. I feel like sometimes that's why I chose to teach, was so that I could always, like, every course I take is like work. And I love it, right? I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's so funny because choosing that identity for myself didn't come easy. And maybe this is what message needs to be shared. I remember years ago, I considered myself a coach, and I went and saw an intuitive, and she was like, "Oh, you're a teacher." And I'm like, "What? No, I'm not. I'm a coach, not a teacher." And now I laugh that I was like, so like, I am so not a teacher, because I'm like, no, I'm a teacher. I can claim that now. I'm totally good with that. In fact, I'm more likely to kind of lean to the teaching than the coaching side, even though I just still do coach. The teaching I resonate with more half the time. So I think the point being, if you're drawn to share something with others on any level, July is going to be an important time to do so. I've talked a lot about you developing your body of work, whether you decide to share it expressly or not. If you choose to be sharing it, July is going to be an important time to do so. And letting yourself both be like the law of reciprocity again, be the giver, be the receiver. If you're teaching and sharing, keep learning, right? Every time you learn and grow, you just strengthen that in yourself. There was another really strong message coming through about trust yourself to break away from the consensus of those you do not need. And that literally was like a straight up sentence. So I'll say it again. Trust yourself to break away from the consensus of those that you do not need. And with that is the sub-bullet of, and the approval that you also don't need, right? So just recognizing like where I've been subtly carrying contracts of like asking for permission, and recognizing like, do you guys understand the concept of like an unspoken contract or an agreement with someone where it's like, well, this is what we just do, right? This is what we just do. We never talk about it. We never, like, nobody said you have to, but like we subtly just fall into these roles where it's like, well, this is what I always do in this relationship, right? And recognizing that if there's contracts there that are unspoken of seeking consensus, seeking permission, or seeking approval, you don't need the other person's permission to drop that contract. You can just drop it, right? And a kind of a funny one is, back when I was in government, I was the queen of spreadsheets, and I would like make spreadsheets for everything. And so my family got to count on me as being the planner. Like I'd be the person who would do spreadsheets for the family vacations and meal plans and schedules and all that kind of stuff. And then one day I just stopped. And for a few times they were like, Meaghan, don't you have a spreadsheet or don't you have a list? And I'm like, nope, I don't. And they were like looking at me expectantly. And I just like had to sit in that discomfort for a few minutes of being like, where every fiber of my being was like, get out your pen and make a list. And I was like, just sit in that uncomfortness for a minute. And once you do it 2 or 3 times, the contract's done. It's done. You don't have to be that person anymore. So recognize it's uncomfortable, but after 2 or 3 times of sitting there, everyone looking at you like you're crazy, then they stop, and nobody expects me to do that anymore. It's wonderful. Right. Okay, July. Trusting yourself, breaking away from contracts. The 3rd of July, the sentence I wrote down there is, can you devote to your fullness? And this is like beyond, like, stop tippy-toeing. This is like beyond that. This is like, okay, you're not tiptoeing anymore. We got over that months ago. But like, would you let yourself be loud? Would you let yourself take up space? Would you let yourself be full? Would you let yourself like take more than your share? Like, would you let yourself for just a minute to see what that felt like? And again, take what lands, take what doesn't. But oftentimes when I'm called to say to someone, would you let yourself take more than your fair share? It's because they have been shrinking for so many years that even the thought of taking what's actually just fair in their mind feels like they're overtaking. Do you know what I mean? They need to reorient to fairness or reasonableness or whatever term you want to use in there, because even just like being fair to them feels selfish, right? So let yourself be full, especially if you've chronically shrunk, right? Or if you've chronically like given more, right? Let yourself be full, the 3rd. Again, money stuff coming up, the 14th of July, new income stream again. So we've talked about this a few times, whether it's a brand new income stream or it's like more anchoring in of something that you've been building and working on. You know, for some of you, you will have multiple things on the go. For others, it's like, no, I have this one thing. So you'll know for you if it's a couple things or if it's one thing. But every time I say new income stream, think to yourself, is that like an actual branch of money for me? Or is that continuing to anchor and strengthen the key one that I'm working on? Okay. And even for people who might just be working a job and they're like, I'm not planning on a side hustle or anything, that's totally fine. But maybe you might think about your investments, right? Or maybe you might think about assets that you have that could be better utilized, right? That would be up to you to think about. The 16th of July is a gathering day. The 16th of July is a day where you should gather and you should celebrate, if you want to, you don't have to. Gather, celebrate, come together with other people who will like, it's just like, what is it? It's like, I don't know, like a baby shower without having a baby. It's like, come together, celebrate whatever the heck you want to celebrate just like being alive at the midway point in the year. Gather, come together, celebrate, connect, be overflowing with other people. For those of you who know tarot, I got an image of the 3 of Cups, right? So celebrate, dance, come together, be in like joyous celebration with loved ones on the 16th. The 17th, you're going to be anchoring in a new idea. Okay. So there is something that like blowing the lid off of things opens the door for you. I don't know what. You're going to be anchoring in a new idea as a result of that. The 28th of July is a karmic relationship day. And I do really feel that there is an opening up in relationships because we have stepped our authenticity up a notch. Not that you weren't being authentic before, but that you can see your potency more clearly now. Okay. So because you can see your potency more clearly now, you can see your color more clearly now, it's a more vibrant color. The quality of your relationships are going to be growing, particularly around the 28th. That's a karmic relationship day. The 26th of July, there's also relationship energy on the 26th of July. So letting yourself celebrate your birthday with people who will help you feel anchored and grounded, who give you that sense of belonging, I think is really, really important. Okay, August. August is 6 energy. There's going to be relationships, love, and karma are going to be themes. Again, asking very clearly what orients me, because one of the shadow traits of 6 is falling into codependence or obligation energy to try to appease other people. So no appeasement energy, no shrinking to make others happy. Don't do that. Orient yourself, be willing to think differently. There's this interesting idea, like we talked a little bit before about, you don't think you need to know everything to be a leader. Okay. This is coming through even stronger in August. Not only like, don't think that you need to know everything, but like, what if leadership had nothing to do with knowing? Like, what if we've been like sold the wrong idea? Like, what if leadership literally has nothing to do with knowing anything? Right? What if leadership instead is like, I don't know, like that's up to you to figure out then, but like maybe it's a frequency, maybe it's an emotion, maybe it's a feeling, an experience, a sensation, right? Maybe it's an embodiment. The idea of having a beginner's mind, okay, is going to be really, really important as it relates to leadership in August. And the idea behind having a beginner's mind is just being like, what if I know nothing? What if I absolutely don't know anything? What if what I think I know is, I can throw all that out the window? And it creates a clean slate in order to bring in an opportunity to see perspectives differently, to see things differently. Right? So again, what if I don't know anything? And what if leadership has nothing to do with knowing? The 14th of August is a very strong intuitive psychic connection day. So if that's something you're working with or you'd like to work with, you might want to mark down that day to take a little bit of time with your practices. And then on the 16th of the month, you can expect a flood of new ideas coming in. Don't leave those ideas in air energy. On the 16th of the month, make sure you take grounded action on something. Okay. It doesn't have to be to completion. You don't have to get it all perfectly, but you need to take a grounded action on one bit. So if it's like, I'm going to journal out all these ideas, maybe it's like, I'm just going to like, I don't know, start a website or start a landing page or reach out to the person I want to partner with or whatever, right? Like the 10-minute step, the 10-minute step. There's also a relationship portal coming up. It's going to be slowly opening starting on the 26th of August and be open quite potently on the 30th of August. Where, again, we're redefining our relationship with like love relationships. We're redefining our relationship with what love is, whether it's friendship, romantic love, whatever. But understanding love and understanding a relationship is very, very different going forward. And because of all the changes that we've gone through personally, it's going to create shifts. And these are wonderful shifts. So just, exploring like, the question of like, how do I open my heart to an even greater love, right? How do I open my heart to an even greater love? Kim's asking about the 17th, or sorry, the love portal starts on the 26th and it is strongest, like it peaks on the 30th. Kim is asking on the 19th. The 19th is a 7-day and a 7-year. So major trusting yourself, leap of faith, make a decision, any decision, just do something a day on the 19th. September is peak energy for the year, you guys. 7 energy month in a 7 energy year, peak energy in the year. There is going to be decision points. Okay. Lots of important decision points in September. And here's what I want you to know more than anything. How you make your decisions is more important than what you decide. How you make your decisions in September is more important than what you decide. It's almost as if what you decide is a little bit irrelevant, but the energy with which you move through those decisions is critical. The energy with which you move through your decisions is critical in September. So make decisions, make lots of them, make them from a light, energetic place, make them from an adventurous place, a freedom seeking place, an exploratory place, a curiosity place, a wonderment place. And if you start feeling stuck, which would be kind of the shadow of the 7, it's just like, just do something, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be right. The other thing that I would say is if you feel stuck in September is do a physical something, right? Do something physical, walk, move, dance, work out, rearrange your furniture, physical something. New money evidence coming in on the 9th of September. Evidence of new money as it relates to the energetic work that you started in the beginning of the year. So remember I said it was cumulative. I've pointed out a few days. Basically, I think there's been at least a day or two every month, but there'll be another one September 9th. Very strong intuitive day on the 12th. And there's an interesting window of time between August 16th to September 14th, where you're going to be birthing new ideas. And when we say like make a decision, any decision, I kind of feel like these new ideas and these decision points are related of like just follow the breadcrumbs, unravel the yarn, but no, like nothing's permanent, right? Like I can always make different changes at any point in time. So explore, move forward, try, experiment, follow those breadcrumbs as the ideas flow. And like I said, there's a kind of an interesting window between August 16th to September 14th. The 15th of September is again about finding people with whom you are in alignment with. So those people who you can trust. I always say, like, I don't care if people are like-minded, as in, I don't care if you think the same as I do, think completely different than me. In fact, that would be interesting. But alignment to me means that you can share your ideas and I can share my ideas, and we're safe and accepting and open to do so. Right. So, again, you play with what that means to you to find people who you're in alignment with. But to me, when I'm hanging out with people who I'm in alignment with, it adds rocket fuel to my mission. Right. So it makes me excited. It makes me want to move forward. I get inspired hits. Right. So find that on the 15th. A strong intuition day again on the 22nd. Strong heart-centered clarity on the 30th of September. So we talked a little bit, I think, I can't remember what month we were in early in the year, in the spring, we talked a little bit about what's your compass, what's your North Star, what orients you when you don't know what decision to make, like what do you compare with, like your value system, your mission, like what is the thing that's your compass, right? The 30th of September, that is going to feel so anchored in and natural. It's going to be bringing about a lot of clarity for you. So anchoring in your new compass and feeling very, very clear. October is devotion, momentum. There's going to be some more money days happening in October. Just being that it's an 8 energy month, there's going to be a lot of flow kicking in from a lot of the work that you've been doing. I would say the most significant days I want to point out would be the 10th and the 11th of October. And there's this idea of some toxic ideas or toxic energy that gets cleared and shifted. So that'll be really interesting. So if you're someone who supports people in mindset work, that'll be an important time for you to be doing your work in, but also for all of us to be shifting and transmuting some energy that doesn't serve anymore. I'm just going to go through the last couple months quick, because the farther out we get, the less it kind of matters at this point. But November 9 energy. So a lot of endings, completions. And what it feels like to me is some of the new ways of embodying based on, like, we've been feeling our way through things. We've been sensing our way through things. We've been working with intuitive systems that have gotten stronger over the year. And so we have this like new identity, right? And it's like anchors in. So we kind of can let go of stuff that doesn't necessarily need to stay anymore, right? There's like that evolution happening. So it's almost like, yeah, like crossing a threshold in a sense. Your practices are going to be very important, particularly around the 8th of the month, 8th of November. So thinking about like practice over process and practice over outcome. And like, what are the things I do that allow me to feel congruent with my truth? Right? What are the things that keep me in my integrity? Practicing those particularly around all the time, but dialing them in a little bit extra on the 8th. On the 20th of November, we shift into a cycle that's very much around kind of not separating, because I'm not one to say like you need to like drop your ego, but there's this idea of like egoic motivations versus more integrated motivations, and some subtle shifting there. So whether it's something that you're noticing personally for yourself or you're noticing in the community around you, there is a window of time where people who are very motivated by very like egoic and selfish at all cost type motivations, there's an opportunity to shift that. Okay. So, which is really great, like really, really great. Where an integrated leadership style, community-minded leadership style is going to be more present, which is wonderful. New idea day on the 19th of November. Big new ideas. December is a 1 energy. What do I want to say about December? I feel like the first couple weeks in December are going to be very, very reflective, particularly the 12th. Between the 4th of December to the 12th of December, it's a great time to be reflective and taking stock. It is 1 energy, which is often about new beginnings, but I kind of get the sense of like, we start out being like, let me think about it before I plant the seed, right? And then that shifts a little bit on the 19th, and we recognize that the seeds I'm planting them because I would like to expand a sense of love and a sense of community in my world. So there's going to be an interesting like dialing up of your whys, I guess, like why you're doing the things you're doing, that will kick in around December 19th. So reflecting between the 4th and the 12th, and then kind of taking action on integrating some of that reflection from the 19th to the 26th. And that ends a year of major change. Okay, this is officially the longest forecast I've ever delivered in my entire life. Apparently I really, really love 7 energy. No surprise there. I'd love to hear. I'm amazed, impressed, and so happy for those of you who are able to stick with me on the call. Thank you. Whether you're listening live, whether you're listening to the replay, if you have questions, send me a note. I do have some trainings coming up, particularly, I think it's like the 26th of January that it starts. That's free trainings on the alchemy of numbers, which I think you guys will really enjoy. Yeah, I think it's the 24th of January, but if you're on my email list, I'll be sending it out soon so that you can mark it in your calendars. And I will send out the recording as well as some of the dates notified, like in a little handout. You can access this again, depending on how you like your practice to go. I will often re-listen, maybe once a month or once a quarter, depending on how I'm feeling and what's going on. And integrate it, like I said, layering it with my personal work, the personal forecast, my personal numerology chart, and whatever other practices I decide to bring in. No, I don't usually do a separate January. I usually just kind of lump it all together into this one because I do kind of spend more time on the sooner months and less time on the farther months. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? If you want to share in the chat, I'd love to hear what was the biggest insight where you're like, that is the piece I needed to hear. That's the thing that landed. That's the thing I'm glad I got. You are so welcome. Thank you for being here with me. My secret hope for all of you guys is I hope that you took away to really take some time to develop your ability to work with energy in whatever way speaks to you, whether it's learning to deepen with your clairs, whether it's learning a new energy modality, come and take part in any of the numerology trainings I'm offering. I'm really, really excited because this year we are doing a deep, deep dive in alchemy of numbers. I'm going to be announcing more of that coming up. But I'm really excited because to me, this year, I'm taking to heart to go even deeper with my intuitive gifts. And I want to share that with you guys. So anyone who wants to be on the journey with me, I'll be so thrilled. And whether you want to study numerology with me or not, I will do monthly forecasts every month and randomly as I want to do so. The download day. I love the download day. The key insight is reframing and how everyone may see things through different filters. Yes, I love that. The body of work, following our inner guidance, community. Yes. Failing. Oh my God. Letting me have a little ease and a little peace. I'm so glad. Mindset, energetic money shifts in January that flow throughout the year. Observation bias. I know. Oh, observation bias. So needed to hear that. Reminder to trust our intuition and lean into our intrigue. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for being with me. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.